Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 256. I am Sean Whalen, Dr. Norge on the Comic Forums, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know. This little episode is a bonus show this week. We have a lot of content that we've recorded, but also a lot of things that I really want to get to that have been big in the DC Universe. The focus on this episode is Jim and I did an hour-long segment on Brightest Day 24 and Justice League Generation Lost number 24, just talking about the wrap-ups of those two big events. And it's something that I want to get out now because we're into Flashpoint. Flashpoint number 1's been released, and it'd be nice to just have a wrap-up segment released to you guys now. So I didn't want to delay this. So this is a shorter mini episode. Mini for us, it's over an hour, plus we've got a couple of listener voicemails. So you got about an hour and a half show here as a bonus this week. And hopefully you'll enjoy this episode. We do a little bit more commentary, too, on the whole Superman controversy. Jim had some comments at the beginning of that Brightest Day segment, and we have some voicemails that reflect some of that, and also some talk about the upcoming DC animated films, which is really cool. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode are DCBService.com, your comic book pre-order source. That's DCBService.com. Check out the amazing deals there if you haven't had a chance to. InStockTrades.com, which is your trade and collected edition source, and SummitCityComicCon.com. Be sure to check out the Summit City Comic Con coming in June. And if you haven't checked out that guest list, it's really amazing. So please check out our sponsors today. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, Sean, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth in the plotline, story twist, and whatnot of the comics we're reviewing. So if we're going over something you haven't read, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's jump right into this bonus episode and Brightest Day and Generation Lost. Jim, I was laughing. First thing you said to me just like 2 seconds ago was, I got a little follow-up to our Superman discussion. I'm like, we didn't even get to this discussion because our Superman discussion went so long. But honestly, I've been thinking about that discussion ever since as well because it's a very tricky one. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, what I did was I brought issue 900 into work, and I had a bunch of non-comic book readers that I work with read the incident and get their take on it. It was actually kind of interesting because everybody who read it, none of them were comic book readers. They, of course, knew who Superman was, and they knew of the truth, justice, and the American way, but they never have no lengthy experience or anything within the comic book legend and lore. And it was kind of very, because I did it just to see what the everyday average non-comic book reader would how they would handle it.
It's a cool idea.
For the majority of them, when they first heard, well, a couple of them I told what was going on, how he's renouncing his U.S. citizenship, but I really didn't go beyond that. And those people were actually kind of really angry who heard that. Then of those people who read it, I'd say probably a split down the middle where some were like, oh, okay, it makes sense, I see, kind of. Or someone say, yeah, they were no longer angry about it, but, they didn't agree with the path it was going. And then the other half still just held on to their, this is wrong. It's truth, justice, and the American way. What's wrong with him not being an American citizen? Doesn't he want to be? Why wouldn't you want to be an American citizen? We help the world. And, all those kind of thoughts that I was having, I was seeing exactly, a replication within people.
Here's my question about that one, and I still go on this. Is it that he doesn't want to see, because this really is a major point as far as how I feel about it. I didn't get the impression in my read on it that he doesn't want to be an American citizen. It was that he thought it was his responsibility to not be one because of the position he was putting the government in. That's how I read it. Now, that's the difference on my end. A huge distinction. Like if Superman got up and said, I no longer want to be an American citizen, I would be 100% in the camp of people saying, what? I didn't read it tone-wise that way. And there's a huge distinction between those two statements. I don't want to be, and I am, giving up my American citizenship because I think it's the right thing to do because of the situation that's been presented to me.
Yeah, and that was interesting. A lot of, I don't think I had anybody who initially thought that he was doing it kind of like as a sacrifice, or doing it for the greater good of the U.S. The people who didn't have an issue with him doing it said, yeah, it makes sense. He's going to be a world champion, representative of the world. He should have, not have the connection and the tie just to the one country. It makes sense. And that's was the most positive way I got out of people. Now, a couple of people that I told, hey, he's doing, and I presented it exactly as you just said, where he's doing it for the good of the U.S. They're like, I still don't like it. Even when I was throwing that out to and this is to the hardcore people who were like, this is just wrong. Anybody who I had that this is just wrong, I really couldn't convert them or turn them or get them thinking, yeah, this is a pretty neat idea. Now, of the other people who went into it going, well, I don't know, were a little bit skeptical, didn't know, after a little discussion with them, they actually thought it was a neat, and I got a couple of them thinking, oh, that's a kind of a neat idea. Let me know if they keep going with this or if this is just going to be in the story. So I think what it comes down to is where your initial stance on this. It's going to be very hard to get somebody who is a hardcore truth, justice, and the American way belief over to the other side.
See, and I think that's what makes it all interesting, because I think it's realistic. See, I actually have zero issue with that. I'm like sitting here saying, oh, they're wrong for thinking that way. I don't have that issue. I do think it's one of those things that it's a story you can, we said it, we were chatting about it. Story you can read many different ways and have many different takes. I have zero issue with that. Because even at this point, I'm making a lot of assumptions that I feel he's doing this for a certain reason, not because he feels that he wants to, or he's doing a talk to the handy of the United States, if that makes sense. Like, if he did that, I'd have a huge problem with it. This isn't him going all parallax. I don't see, you know what I mean? This was him saying, okay, you're coming to me saying my doing this, my doing what I felt was right here is putting the government in a bad position because of the way people look at me. And if I'm doing that by doing what I feel is morally right as Superman, then I've got to, put this aside. To me, it's going to be fascinating to see if they do anything with this.
Yeah, I know.
Because I still laugh about your last comment. Because this could be nothing.
Interesting to note, I had a couple of the people think it wasn't going to be quote unquote real, as they said. They were like, this isn't real, right? This is just a story. So they're thinking it's not going to be continuity just from that read.
Except it was in the anniversary issue, though. That's the point. I agree with that. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I'm just because I went through the same debate with myself at first, and actually was brought up on our Facebook page too before I even started thinking about it, which probably led me to think about it. I don't think it's a throw-off story, only because to put that in your anniversary issue, this is issue 900, huge issue. You figure that some people are going to pick it up just on the basis of the fact that it's the anniversary issue, just to have it, as a piece of comic history. To put a story in there that's going to, although there were definitely stories in there that were isolated, that could have been.
Yeah, see,
that's a big thing to do with him, though, to just say, that kind of happened.
Yeah.
Jim, I want to talk about Brightest Day number 24. Talk about big events that have happened. We've got the reveal, obviously, that Swamp Thing is back. And it is Alec Holland as Swamp Thing, which is funny. This throws totally out of the window my theory that it was going to be Alec Holland versus Swamp Thing. That we were going to have the separation of the two, and maybe he was the guy in the shadows. Because at the end of this issue, we do find out who the guy in the shadows is in John Constantine. And the reason why I'm even jumping to all this, how many conventions in the last few years have we been at where people have been asking, there's always a question or two about the Vertigo characters coming back, the ones that started the DC Universe, coming back to the DC Universe. John Constantine and Swamp Thing being two names prominently brought up every single time. Because there was always this kind of divorce between the two lines. How do you feel about that? I think it's a good thing, but how do you feel about it?
Oh, I think it's cool. I'm definitely looking forward to this and seeing where this goes. And for me, if there's a Constantine that's in the DC universe, I'll probably pick it up. Where I wasn't picking up his stuff, I was picking up trade here, trade there. But if they were to start up a monthly with him inside the DCU, I would probably pick it up just to, one, to give it a shot, and two, if it's within the continuity, I like to try to keep everything together.
Well, I'd be curious. See, I don't know that if I were them, I certainly wouldn't start a new Constantine book out of this, because you've got one that's been running forever. So to start a new, to have two Constantine books running, I think I would find a way to have this be the Vertigo Constantine, or just keep Constantine in the DC universe for his appearances. And if people want to read Constantine Adventures, they read Hellblazer. The only reason why I'm saying that is because I think that it's, and I'm a fan of Hellblazer now. I'm a big believer in it. There's a book that I never read before. I think it's cool that Constantine's back. I never understood why these characters were not allowed back into the DC universe to begin with. There's no reason why you can't use them and have them appear in stories. Death appearing in Action Comics. Why not? I thought it was great. And it's something that obviously is going to get people's attention. And, these are characters that should be able to appear if necessary. Where the writer's like, hey, I got a great idea. Can I use this character? Of course, they're characters. Throw them in there. We own the character. Why not? Swamp Thing? Why isn't Swamp Thing appearing in the DC universe? Now, there's a character right now who doesn't have a book, Swamp Thing. So, great opportunity for you could launch, a DC title with Swamp Thing and have it going there. Now, would you have an issue going off of what you said about Constantine? What if they found a way to have the Vertigo book acknowledge the fact that he is able to be in the DC universe?
Well, I'll stick with what I said. I probably, if the Vertigo title started to be part of the DCU continuity, I probably would pick it up just because, I'm a little bit goofy that way where I like the completist. And especially since Constantine's going to have it looks like he's going to have a huge role with Swamp Thing and with this whole new status quo after Brightest Day, with the Defender and Champion of the Planet. So, if they were to say all of a sudden that the Vertigo Hellblazer title is now part of the DCU, I probably would pick it up for a couple issues, see if I really liked it, and then I'd make the decision.
I guess I just don't know that I feel that that's necessary. I say I'm the one that's saying it. You're not saying it. I'm the one that's saying it. I don't know that him being able to appear in the DC universe necessarily means that because we had Phantom Stranger in the DC universe and he was appearing in Madame Xanadu, and I totally felt that those were separate things. So why not? I don't know that they necessarily need to be. I think there's something cool about having a Vertigo title featuring John Constantine that just kind of does his own thing, and that title's certainly been popular enough to sustain itself as is. So why? I think you risk alienating the fans who are Vertigo fans who maybe don't read the DCU. Whereas this might get some DCU fans to try Constantine in the Vertigo book because he's appeared in the DCU. At least I would hope. I don't know.
Yeah, there definitely could be some cross going over that way, and I don't know. I want to see the Brightest Day aftermath where they'll probably go a little bit more into this and see where things go after that.
Now, did you read Green Arrow, issue number 11?
No, I haven't yet.
Okay. Which that deals, and I won't spoil anything other than, as you can guess, it deals more with the forest.
Oh, okay.
Because obviously all of this is coming to a head. So it would come to head in Green Arrow as well. And they actually tell you in the beginning of the issue, and this is right on the first page, that it takes place before the events in this issue of Brightest Day.
Oh, cool.
So we're at the point right now with this issue of Brightest Day. The entire Brightest Day storyline has now come to a head, whether their characters are happening in the book or out of the book. The conclusion of at least the White Lantern's involvement with these heroes is coming to a head, which was great. Now, this whole thing with Captain Boomerang, Hawk, and Dove, the throwing of the boomerang finally.
Yeah.
What did you think about all that and how that resolved? Because there's one character we've seen now. They've not resolved themselves.
Yeah, mission failed. And I was kind of curious about that because, what was he supposed to do? Was he supposed to take the boomerang to the chest? Was Hawk supposed to die in this game plan? And because Deadman died, it was just an improvise?
Oh, I don't know. That's an interesting point because he really did, his hand went out there to save Dove. So I guess I don't understand what would have been any different if he had put his chest in front of it.
Well, if he would have stopped the boomerang. Because with his hand out there, it cut through the hand. So, it still could have killed Dove. And his assignment was to protect and save Dove. So he technically didn't. It was Deadman who saved Dove. So
are you taking this then that Deadman's death wasn't supposed to happen?
I don't know. I'm wondering if what I was thinking is, say Hawk takes the boomerang in the chest. Mm-hmm. Deadman, it saves, thinks of somebody other than himself and saves Hawk. is how I think the White Lantern was going to do it. And yeah, it was always laid out that Deadman would die because he's got the white ring. His ring had to leave to go to Alec to get him to have him live so he could become Swamp Thing. So something would have had to happen within that path of the ring leaving him. Now, maybe it would have left him if he would have been alive, and it could have been the passing it on, passing the torch, so to speak. But part of me is always thinking that the White Lantern wanted Hawk to take the thing to the chest, to die, and then Deadman sacrifices himself to save Hawk.
And wasn't the deal with Deadman taking the boomerang the fact that Deadman was not tainted by Necron?
Right.
It was the one pure soul that was returned because there was, no way that he would have been tainted by it. Wasn't that the deal? Did I read that right? Because that was something that was the White Lantern references the fact that Boston was not pulled in from all that. I don't know.
I think so.
Because let me actually refer to the part that I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it right now.
If it is still not clear, Boston Brand, this is about you as much as anyone else. When Necron came to Earth, you were dead, free from any connection to the living, and therefore free of infection or decay. You were the only one whose life force was absolutely pure. If underappreciated, you were my sanctuary, and this force, the Greens. While I resurrected many to stave off this attack, others like Aquaman were of more importance. Once purified, their essence could act as a guide. Well, no, I guess this is just saying this is why Deadman was able to hold the ring.
Lantern bearer.
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean that he had to die. They needed a life essence, so it could have been Hawk's life essence that was meant to bring back Alec Holland. He was meant to take the boomerang.
Yeah.
Would his life have returned if he did that then?
Well, maybe that's how he wouldn't have quote unquote died. Is he dies from the boomerang, but then his life is returned.
Yeah. But Boston didn't have that option.
Right, because he was already dead. He was already, he really didn't have that. So, yeah.
So I guess that is my question. Going back to that then, did Boston die because Hawk wasn't able to do what he was supposed to do?
Yeah. Boston died because Hawk failed.
Wow.
Which is going to be interesting to see how he deals with that, in Birds.
How Dove deals with that, with the, concept that she's in love with Boston.
And he's in love with her, and, he's gone.
She's able to hear him during that one segment, is that because the White Lantern's still present at that point? Or is that going to be an ongoing thing, is one of my questions as well, because I don't know that we know that here.
I don't think we know that. I was thinking that it was only a temporary thing, but to be honest, that'd be kind of neat if it was an ongoing thing, because of her connection to, the peace and just her personal energies that she has. I could see her maybe being able to do the crossover thing.
Now, when Swamp Thing finally defeats Dark Swamp Thing, or, Black Lantern, or Evil Swamp Thing, the darkness is gone. He's cleared up the Earth. So this is the end of, this is like the complete epilogue to Blackest Night? Is that how you're taking that?
Yeah, that's the end of Necron's influence on the Earth.
Right.
This was the final piece, and now what happens after this, I don't know.
This is then the Brightest Day?
Yeah.
Where, we finally purge the Earth and we have a new age. He's going off around the Earth and resurrecting the Greens and stuff like that, and kind of bringing life back to the planet itself, so to speak. And we get to see the return of the four heroes, the ones that took on the elemental form, minus Shayera.
Yeah, not good.
I'm not, and let me, what I'm saying, I'm very curious to see where this is going to go. Where is she? Are we going to get a Shayera again? Or, is this Hawkman's going to have to live without her permanently? I don't know.
Here's the thing I was thinking. When they first, got together, and when they first were made into, when they first, defeated the curse, and they were going to be made, and they got turned into, the elements, they were given that option of separating, and they chose not to. What if they would have chose to separate? Would he have only taken one of them, and the other one would still be alive on Earth?
Oh, no. Oh, wow. So by choosing to separate, wow, would there have been an opportunity for the one to come? Wow.
Only one would have been able to come back.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's a very valid point. I definitely want to see some resolution to that.
Yeah, I want to see an ongoing Hawkman series where they talk about this and show us some stuff. And part of me is because they say, in the issue, she's all around you. Her essence is all around, and her essence is everywhere. So I'm thinking she's somewhere in some other body, and he's just got to find her.
Yeah, I don't know on that, Jim, because the reference was that she's all around you. So if she's all around you, meaning the wind, she's part of that now. Does that mean that she is? Or will Hawkman have to do something to make that possible? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that's going to happen. It's cool to see Martian Manhunter so at peace. Because, in recent years before his quote-unquote death, we've seen a guy who was really trying to find his role, find his place, was becoming distant from, his quote-unquote human side, his role on Earth. This is a guy now who is really kind of putting closure on all of his demons of the past, the things that kept him from being a part of the Earth, and he sees himself now as a citizen of the Earth. Which is fine. We see Superman no longer being a citizen of America, but, Martian Manhunter saying, hey, Earth's pretty cool. And Superman is, too. I laugh about that just because I do think we're seeing now a rebirth of a brighter age of heroes where we're seeing heroes who are really going to try and make a difference on our planet. Mm-hmm. And it's funny how many heroes, like Batman at first, now Superman, Martian Manhunter coming back, and in the end of Generation Lost, which we're going to be talking about Generation Lost, I'm going to go to it, we're seeing a Bruce Wayne trying to bring about with the heroes a Justice League International returning. Now, here's my question. Who's going to be on the Justice League International team? Is it going to be limited to just that team, or are we going to start seeing some of the heroes, such as your Superman and your Batman, possibly on that team?
Well, Batman was part of JLI so Batman, I think, is going to be on that team.
Mm-hmm. Well, but here's the thing. The JLI roster wasn't limited to, there wasn't that Superman and them couldn't be involved. Actually, it expanded to being Justice League Europe, and there were, other factions that came from all that. So, there was Shazam. Captain Marvel was a part of that team, in the kickoff. So was Guy Gardner. So I don't think we're going to see necessarily all those heroes back on that. It has to be those heroes again. Right. To me, it would be interesting to have the characters you would expect, but then also to have maybe some heroes you wouldn't expect on that team.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to get the roster that's been in Generation Lost is going to be on the team. Going. That's going to be the next run of it. Now, the interesting thing.
Well, wait, hang on. I agree with you 100%. I'm saying that I don't think those are going to be the only members. So let me clarify that. I'm not saying that we're going to pull out Captain Atom and pull in Batman. I'm wondering, are we going to see just those heroes? Which I would be. Let me say this: I will be fine if Winnick pulls the exact team he's been working with on that book, and that's who we're going to read about. Cool. I guess my question is with them actually becoming, because they're not known as the Justice League International in Generation Lost. These are just the heroes who were formerly on Justice League International.
Right. And I don't know, actually, at the end of the issue where they're talking about it, they are named as the Justice League International. Right. You think about with that the press the news report that's initially at the beginning when Prime is fighting them. The reporter refers to them as the Justice League International.
Probably pulling back their old allegiances and everything.
Yeah, just because you see the same people fighting together, you figured, oh, okay, that's who it's got to be. We always got to put a label and a recognition on something, especially in the media. They have to, give it some title, give it a dress that everyone's used to. So when they saw that, that's what they labeled them. So I think we're going to see that. I'm wondering if we're going to get Wonder Woman in the mix because she got involved with this whole story arc here and how it ended up, and with Max trying to kill her and wanting to kill her. I'm thinking we're going to see Wonder Woman hanging out with the JLI and doing her thing there.
Well, there's a lot of characters we could see, so I guess I'm not sure. I'm curious to see how that book is going to play out and what's going to happen. Where it applies back to Brightest Day is Max Lord, and they do a summary of Max Lord and Jade and Osiris. Osiris brought back Isis, who is ultimately going to help Swamp Thing. Jade fought back the darkness of Obsidian, which would have corrupted the Swamp Thing and made him further unstoppable. We've got Max Lord, who stopped the Earth from being plunged into a superhuman war. Now, let's talk about that for a second. You and I have talked about this off the air recently, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because we stopped ourselves. There was another conversation where we stopped ourselves. My thought on this is Magog's death stopped the war. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, actually, when we had our conversation, I was thinking one thing, and then I actually reread some issues, and I'm like, okay, I was wrong. What I was initially thinking was I thought that Magog got blasted into time because all the energy that Captain Atom was absorbing, and he became unstable, and it was one of those things where, he got thrown into either another Earth or another time or something like that. Whereas when I reread the issues, you see very clearly that his head gets blown off, and you see his body, minus a head laying there. So,
yeah, that's why it was funny when you were saying that. I'm like, boy, I don't know. It's pretty clear that Magog was dead. I guess. Okay, going back then to my original question, I personally think, does this mean then that he stopped Kingdom Come?
Well, every image they showed of a superhuman war throughout all this, especially when they first started talking to Max Lord, has been images from Kingdom Come. Okay. It showed Superman and Shazam fighting. It showed everything in that. But my question is, I thought that Kingdom Come universe was one of the different Earths. It wasn't this Earth, but it was another Earth.
Well, no, hold on. I agree with you, but I think I think that still stands. But I think what happened was we've seen why on this Earth that doesn't happen. Do you follow me?
I got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, yes, you're right. It is one of the... I think the Kingdom Come world, I'm with you. I think it is one of the 52. But I think what we've seen now is why on our Earth, our Red Robin, Dick Grayson never became Red Robin. Tim Drake did. Mm-hmm. In this world, Magog never is a part of Kingdom Come. There is no Kingdom Come. It has been stopped because Magog died due to what happened with Max Lord.
Okay.
So this is, now we've seen that the future is not what we expected it to be.
Yeah, it's a nice little change to it. And I thought that was actually kind of a cool way where each one of them has their little pieces and their little bits. And Max Lord, in a way, was played, but in the end, he figured out to turn it for his own, best interest. I thought that's, again, a cool writing of a villain in that he gets used by the quote-unquote heroes, but he still is able to succeed in the end. He's still able... He didn't get his ultimate end game, but he's still doing pretty cool.
I loved how he cleared Captain Atom's name. Again, positive things about the Justice League International from him, putting himself in a position where it's making him seem like he was working alongside, for the greater good all along. Mm-hmm. It was a very interesting spin doctoring that he pulled off there, which I thought was brilliant. And that shows a truly interesting villain. And I use that term... Well, he's clearly a villain. I mean, he killed Blue Beetle, so he's clearly a villain. But I guess he's another one that reminds me of at times when you read about Lex Luthor. Max Lord really believes he's doing the right thing. I guess in many ways, though, he's one of the most prejudiced people in this universe because he's prejudiced against the superhuman and the aliens and all these people that are different. So really, he's prejudiced. I mean, that's really what his major issue is. And that makes him then, in many ways, I think prejudice is evil. I think it's an evil that still exists today. I think it's something that couldn't be argued is a part of human nature, but that we should strive to better ourselves from. And I think it's cool that you got a hero that... This is one of those things where art imitates life and makes you see a better way. You don't want to be Max Lord.
No.
And that's... And his bigotry is ultimately what drives him. And it drives Lex Luthor, too, actually. His bigotry against the alien.
Yeah. And I love how he did his spin doctoring because it's a great way for him to fight any more negative blast against him. If the JLI come out saying, no, he's really evil, he's a bad guy, people are going to start saying, he's saying all these nice stuff about you guys. What are you talking about? And it'll put doubt in the everyday average person against the JLI, saying, hey, don't these people realize this guy's being nice to me? He's their friend. Why are they doing this? And it's a great, nice little psychological power play that Max is doing. And it was cool how they talked about how he didn't interrupt transmissions. He just threw it out there on the net. just so he's like an everyday guy, just like you and me. He's not taking over all the news outlook, all the news broadcasts. He's just doing it out there, just letting you know what's going on. And that was beautiful play on his part.
Yeah, yeah. I dig that kind of stuff. I dig when you've got a smart villain. I love the powerful ones. I love your Doomsday style characters where, they're, kind of mindless monsters and stuff, like super powerful and that type of thing. But I love when you get your smart ones. What was creepy about the Brainiac story from Jeff Johns and Superman was that Brainiac's super intelligent, and you're not just dealing with brawn, you're dealing with somebody who's operating on an intelligence level that can really, one-up you. And that's what's great about seeing him versus Lex Luthor. It's great about seeing Max Lord here. Just seeing these smart, intelligent, these villains who can one-up you. Which is different than the Joker, who I consider the Joker intelligent too, but he's crazy.
Yeah, well, you need that level, that type of villain works great when it's one on many. And you can throw a really powerful villain against one on many, but for me, it's the intelligent, it's the planning, it's the manipulators, it's the ones who always have, they're one step ahead of the heroes. Those are the kind of villains that when they're fighting a team, it becomes believable. And you think, yeah, okay, I can see how he did this. He took this technology. He took, a piece of Blue Beetle tech. He took some of the Amazo. He took some from the Creature Commandos. He took some from the Metal Men. And he combined all of those into OMAC Prime. And he made this super, OMAC that's going to be able to take down Wonder Woman this time, as well as take down the JLI if they try to stop him. I thought that was just a really beautiful play on his part, and it was a nice culmination of everything that he's been doing. You see exactly why he did each of the steps that he did, played it out, boom, here's the end game. Let's, do this.
Speaking of couples that I'm glad to see back together, Aquaman and Mera.
Yes.
The kind of the epilogue with them in Miami. Talking about there would have been more deaths if it wasn't for you and Jackson. And then I love how Aquaman's acknowledging her and saying, it wasn't for all of us. And we're seeing these two. I'm sure there's going to be more dealings with them by the new revelation of what Mera's original role was. But I was glad to see that he truly is, saying, hey, this is my wife. And, I'm going to be curious to see where their relationship goes from here because I really like the two of them together. And I think the wrinkle of her past is going to make for some interesting storytelling. It's of a couple whose love is able to help them move on. And I do hope they stay together. I hope that the role, and I can't see them going otherwise on this, but I find them infinitely interesting.
Oh, amen. It's funny, you think about it. They survived an assassination attempt. Mm-hmm. She came there to kill him, and their marriage survived that. That's a tough one to get over.
Yeah, absolutely. And for him to forgive her and to recognize all she's done since, to me is just, woof, that just added to my respect level. Now, in this whole sequence of events where, I love the bit where he talks about Jackson. Jackson still wants to continue his training. That's what Mera said, and then he's already contacted the Titans. So I guess, are we going to see him a part of the Teen Titans book, maybe?
I'm hoping. I would like to see him on that team.
I think there's room.
Oh, definitely. Especially the way they're kind of rotating around the cast, and Superboy, I think, is not going to be in all the time, so he's definitely someone that can rotate out. Wonder Girl, I don't know if she's going to be a constant, part of the team. So I think a little bit more diverse, flexible cast of heroes on the Titans would be a definite, cool way to tell some neat stories, and he's really a good addition to that.
Well, let me ask you this question, because I'm not saying you're wrong. I think it's an interesting idea what you're saying. I guess I never, when I was thinking about him joining the Titans, I didn't see anybody rotating out for that to happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that the whole, like you said, that the whole team has to appear every issue, but I guess I didn't see him coming on the roster, meaning we had to have people rotate out for him to be there. Do you think if he's on the team and everyone's in every issue that it's too many people?
No. Definitely not. I don't think. I think we could, add one more person to the team. I don't know. For me, I like hero teams that do have a little bit of fluctuation in them. Lately I've really started to, and it's one of the things that I'm liking about Legion of Superheroes, and that different strike forces for this project, strike force for this thing, and it's not always the full cast going here, the full cast going here. So I'm starting to really dig that, and I'd like to see that in more of the other team books that I have, where let's mix things up a little bit. This story arc is going to only have these four. This story arc's going to have the full Titans cast. It's a neat way to. It's again a very realistic, approach to team dynamics in the superhero universe, because not everyone's always going to be available. They're going to have stuff they're doing. They're going to have, a big emergency in Gotham or something under the sea that, he's got to take care of. There's always going to be that flux. So let's, show that heroes can improvise, adapt, and overcome.
I like the strike force concept a little bit more that you're talking about, and Legion's a great example, in the sense that I'm all for what you're saying as long as we can show that these teams that you're talking about work together quite often. Because to me, to have a rotating superhero lineup, if you don't have them be regulars, in the sense that I agree with what you're saying, Superboy's busy this one, so we got this team. This person's busy this one, so we've got this team. But ultimately, you've got the same cast, and sometimes we can have all of them together. Because I want familiarity between them on the battlefield. Otherwise, the fact that they're able to work together and adapt on the battlefield is going to lose a lot of steam for me because they don't know each other on the battlefield. So there's got to be that element of who is the Teen Titans? What are the team members of the Teen Titans? And if you're going to do something like that, if that's the way it's going to go, which I'm not entirely sure, but I'm not saying you're wrong either. It could be that's what they're doing. I'd be fine with it either way, as long as we do know who the stable cast of characters are. Because look what happened with Damian during his early appearance.
Yeah.
Because the team, he didn't have any familiarity with the team dynamics. It caused some problems. And I don't want to see a team in the Teen Titans that either has those problems all the time or doesn't have those problems, and yet they don't team up all the time, so it makes no sense that they would be a solid squad together. And I don't see them going that route. I think it is more, and I don't think you're talking about it that way. I think you're talking about this is the set squad, but maybe Hero A isn't able to be a part of this adventure.
Oh, definitely. We'll have. I think you have to agree with you. You have to have a regularity. You have to have a comfort. And even training. I always kind of like seeing training sequences, or just like the tail end of a training sequence, so you can actually think these guys are practicing and planning, together. Because you can't just train on the fly. You can't just train in combat. You have to have regular times where you're okay. So you can call out, attack pattern alpha, instead of saying you go here, you go here, you go here, because it's one's quicker than the other, and plus it's also an anticipation of what the others are going to do. So I definitely want to see a nice run together, some familiarities, just some comfort with everybody, and as I said, training sequences would be pretty cool, and that actually you can get some good character development, some good personal inner dynamics going that way as well.
It's funny. Looking over this sequence with Aquaman and Mera, I'm excited for the Aquaman solo series that's going to be coming up, to be able to see the Aquaman Team Aquaman book, and it made me kind of think to myself, I'm like, do I want to see Aquaman on a team? And part of me is like, yes, and another part of me is like, well, it'd be interesting now that we're starting to see some characters maybe aren't being spotlighted so much, developing into series. Like, for example, Justice League International, having those characters back. What's that going to mean for Booster, in his own solo book? Is he still going to be the greatest hero we never knew when he's on Justice League International? Or has he outgrown that now? Has he moved beyond that role? We'll see. But for Aquaman, what is his role going to be on Earth? Are we going to see him dealing more with Atlantis and those issues and, kind of seeing that interesting and neat world, but maybe not seeing him interacting with the superhero community at large in the sense from an outside point, or are we going to see something else? I don't know. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out.
I'm thinking we're going to see him, focusing on Atlantis and focusing on the world under the sea, because that one sequence when he's sitting there looking at the weapons they were using, goes, this is Atlantean. So there's something going on underwater that he's got to get the bottom of. So I think that's probably where the main focus of him is going to be. He's like, I'm back. I got to take care of my kingdom before I can start looking outside. But here's Aqualad. If this will be our representative to the surface, will be Jackson. I think we're going to see that kind of mindset.
Yeah, maybe. Because part of his training, he's naturally there. I don't know. I'm just very curious to see how that all is going to play out. And I don't have a preference. It's funny, as we're talking about a lot of this, I'm anticipating some great and interesting storytelling with these characters. It's going to be great to see them back. I don't have necessarily a preference. I'm just going to be glad to be able to read about them.
See, I still hold on to the hope that the Justice League will ask for a representative from Atlantis, and Aquaman will send Mira. And he's like, I have to stay down here. I have to take care of my people. But here's my queen, and she will represent us. I would love to see her. I still think she would be a great character to add to the Justice League team, the Justice League lineup. And it would be, again, a kind of familiar character, but a little bit different personality. And she's got her own quirks, and I think that would make a great storytelling. I
don't know, though. I'm not against that. I guess what I'm thinking, one of our listeners mentioned, and I apologize, I forget who it was, mentioned on either on the forums or was it on Facebook that Starfire might be coming back to Justice League. That might be where we're going to see her pop up. I don't know. Or, somebody will see on maybe a Justice League International, though I don't know that she would fit there. Maybe that'd be the surprise, seeing her fit there.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where these characters wind up.
Well, they said we're going to be surprised where she goes. So
right.
I don't know. Justice League, wouldn't be a surprise for me. Now, JLI, yeah, that would be a bit of a surprise. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think elsewhere where she would be a surprise.
Aquaman.
Birds would be probably...
I'm kidding.
What?
I said Aquaman. No, yeah, Birds would be interesting for her. That would be shocking.
That'd be a nice surprise because she's never had any indication of being on the Birds team.
Well, also being on Barbara Gordon's team.
They have issues. Yeah. I forgot about that.
That would be an interesting surprise as well. Then we'd have Barbara Gordon, Huntress, and Starfire on the same team.
Well, that'd be an interesting meetings.
Yeah. If I'm Dick Grayson, I'm staying away from there. Yeah, that would be, this guy's a nightmare. I don't know. I don't know where the character would wind up. I'm excited for that, though. I like this character of Starfire a lot, so wherever she winds up, I'm curious. So I guess I'm curious to think, we're thinking what we think would be a surprise. I wonder what DC thinks would be a surprise.
Right. Who knows?
I want to make sure we talk about Firestorm. Yes. And the revelation at the end of the issue that they're looking to detonate like less than 90 days?
Yeah, 90 days.
And where's that going to happen at?
Yeah, that's not a good thing. We got a problem there, and Professor Stein's not around, so it's up to those two. Or who else? Are there other scientists who are an expert in the Matrix?
I don't know. It was pretty much so Stein. I mean, I guess you could go, if you're Firestorm, who do you go to? I'd start going to your Ray Palmers, you go to Star Labs, I'd go to everybody and their uncle. You start with the Justice League, and through the Justice League, you get your contacts. So I'd start with the Justice League. Yeah.
Now, is it the Matrix is going to explode, or the Matrix will explode if they fuse together? That's my question.
No, it sounds like they're going to explode. So I think it's because it wasn't. We can never be together again. As near as I can guess, when we were blasted by the Anti-Monitor, the Matrix was damaged, and I think a countdown started. According to the professor's diagnostic program, in less than 90 days, we are going to detonate. So...
yeah, we're going to detonate.
The Matrix is unstable, so it doesn't say based on if they connect. I think they are the connection. The Matrix is there. Done.
Man, this was just, it's funny because this is the brightest day, and this is just this big victory for everybody. But a lot of people really have some bad stuff going on.
Well, it was a victory for Earth. It's the brightest day for Earth. Earth is being finally cleansed of. But like as with anything in the superhero universe, where do we go from here? And what is not? It ended well for a lot of people, but there's more to do. And it's going to be a pretty... Martian Manhunter, I think, is probably fared the best. Yes. Of all of them, to be honest. Aquaman fared pretty well, too. But Martian Manhunter, to me, is clearly the best.
Yeah, definitely he got the best deal.
Well, and Aquaman did pretty well, too, though. He got a hand back.
Well, yeah, got a hand back. He's got probably his kingdom back, and got his life back because he was dead for a while there. So that's definitely he's got a pretty good plus column there.
Yeah, he's doing well. But you're right, a lot of other people did.
Yeah, Dead Man and Dove. Oh.
But I think they were all sacrifices for the greater good of making the Earth cleansed again, making it a better place. And I think that's what Martian Manhunter, maybe more than everybody else, had come to terms with it, and it was at peace with when this all came down, which was cool.
And that was cool when he's with the daughter of the scientist and kind of cures her, fixes her by pulling out the fragment that was in her brain. And she's like, I always wanted to apologize. He's like, no, you didn't take away my life. You gave me life. And I thought that was just a cool moment that he makes this woman who's been tortured her whole life over something that happened when she was younger now has her moment of peace as well.
I think that's his closure for the whole Mars thing. He knows who he is now. He's chosen worlds. That we got to see him make that choice. And he's completely at peace now with being here and being a part of the society and all that. I think that's great. Because I thought it was an interesting story to see him go through that, to see what kind of... Because that would cause conflict. He isn't like Superman, where as an infant he was sent down there. Actually he's got a lot more in common with Supergirl out of the two of them, where, he actually lived on his planet. Had a family there. And, that's hard to find closure from. And after all this time, he's finally found that closure. And I think that's great. I think it's kind of cool to see that character. I'm glad we got to go along on that ride and on that journey. I think it meant more because we got to see him go to some dark places, where he became all the more alien and, then got stabbed in Final Crisis and give you a new lease on life.
Yeah, he's gone through a lot. I'm hoping he's another character that I hope they keep around and, they use him. There's,
wait.
You have this character.
Jim, you know where he's going to wind up? He's going to wind up on Justice League International.
Oh, hopefully. That'd be another nice one. Yeah.
Because he's been there.
Yeah.
So you'd be nuts not to, right?
Yeah, or will the League try to get him? Will the other Justice League try to get him?
Do they need him? No, I guess what I'm saying is I think a book like... And I'm not saying Justice League International needs him either, but I think that character would do very well over in International. I think it would be a good spot for him. I think that's a book that could, a great location, I think. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what they do with him.
Yeah, he'd definitely do well either place. I'm just thinking, if I'm on the Justice League and Martian Manhunter's back on the table, I'm going to want him just because just the power levels that he brings to the mix. Definitely, that's somebody I'd like to pull into on my team. But, again... I want to see the character go to a book where he's going to be used, and he's going to be used well. So if it's on JLI, woohoo! If it's JL, groovy. If it's wherever, as long as we've recreated this character, we've took him down, brought him back, and had some really cool stories on the mix. Let's use this guy now.
I don't see him launching into his own series.
No. I would personally pick it up, but
I would too.
I don't think the book would sell. I think people need to. Get reacquainted with him and see him on a team dynamic, on a book maybe that's, especially, JLI would be a good spot for him. JL would be a good spot for him.
He's a great person for a team book. I'm actually going to take back what I said. When you were sitting there saying, well, if I'm Justice League, I'm like, you know what? Either team would benefit from him. So and I think he would be interesting on either team. So I don't know. I'll be very curious to see how this all plays out with him. I hope we get to hear more word about the Hawkman series coming back. I'm guessing we're not going to hear anything from that until after Flashpoint.
Yes. And who knows, maybe Flashpoint will bring her back. That'd be kind of interesting because there is a scene in Flashpoint, a cover, that shows her as one of the Wonder Woman and the Furies, I think is.
Right.
So maybe that'll bring back Shayera.
She is on the cover of Wonder Woman and the Furies #1. Yeah. You're right. It's going to be curious to see if that is... Well, I guess it would be Shayera. Wow. Kind of cool. Just as a summary of this, Jim, Brightest Day and Generation Lost as events. They've tied up in 24 issues. Both had complete stories that wrapped up at the end, and I thought both did a great job of leaving us with anticipation of things to come. Do you need your stories to have a full finite ending with everything closed off and no dangling threads? Like this, I wouldn't say these are dangling threads. These are more prologue pieces to the future for these characters, which I prefer. I like to have a good ending where it leads to something that shows me, like if you're bringing back characters like this, please show me at the end that there's going to be something happening with them and make me anticipate Aquaman, make me anticipate Hawkman, make me anticipate Martian Manhunter. I anticipated and Firestorm. All 4 returning characters, I am looking forward to finding out what's going to happen with them. That's my preference. What's yours? Does that...
Well, any story needs beginning, middle, and end. And you do need an ending, but it doesn't need to be closed off. If it's an ongoing story, then you leave it a little open. You leave it room for where it's going to go in the future. Prime example is with Generation Lost. The ending there that shows that, the return of the JLI in their monthly series, but also just the characters. You see them all, responding to Max Lord's comments. You see, and even just, I love seeing just Rocket Red in his, workshop fixing his armor. And he's getting ready for the next round. He's not done with Max. He's gonna take it to him. And I thought that was just cool moments of these characters, the downtime, waiting until the next story and next adventure comes along. And so for stories like that, I liked how the ending went. Brightest Day, that was a nice contained event, and both of them connected. It did give us our endings, but then it gave us a place where these characters that they've been promoting and that they've been using this series to relaunch, here's where they could go. Here's their future. So again, it's the same thing where we did have a definite ending to the story, but it's not closed off. And this is really good as long as the story continues. Now, if we get nothing from these people and all the speculation we've had, doesn't happen, then I probably later on would say, come on, you dropped the ball here. And that would take away from my memory of the enjoyment of the title.
Are we going to see Power Girl on JLI?
I don't know. She definitely could be there, but I don't want to see her leave JSA.
I don't know. I'm curious. I'm not saying that. I don't know that I have a preference there, because JSA is going to be mighty huge. So I don't know that I have a preference. I'm looking at the lineup. Like when you were talking before about Wonder Woman, I'm looking at this whole crew walking, and the common thread that would link these teams together and Batman with them is Max Lord.
Yeah.
That would these guys are all angry and motivated. Blue Beetle, I think, is an essential on this team. Rocket Red. Fire, Ice, and we see Batman walking there, Power Girl walking there, Wonder Woman. I'm like, well, that's a pretty cool lineup of them. I guess there were certain people like Wonder Woman I didn't consider.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know why, but I'm kind of like now, well, why not? So yeah, I don't know.
I definitely think the heroes that are circling around Max when he teleports out, and the heroes they show watching the broadcast 2 weeks later, are probably going to be your JLI people. If not, maybe a couple extras.
That is Power Girl and Wonder Woman and Batman.
Yeah.
You know what? I want to see more Fire and Rocket Red. I like their relationship. That was
kind of neat, the beginning of it, and see where it goes. And I hate to say this, because I love the character, but Guy Gardner, I don't think they need him on there. He's busy with the Green Lantern, War Green Lanterns, and everything going on there.
I don't think Guy Gardner's going to be on the team. I was mentioning that Guy Gardner was on the previous team.
Right, yeah.
But there were a lot of characters. Like, I don't think we're going to see Captain Marvel on this team. Although maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that that's going to be the route this will go. But I would love to see this lineup. I was just throwing out people that were on the team before. That's what that's how Martian Manhunter came in the mix or things like that. I don't know that necessarily. I'm with you. Maybe we've seen the lineup. That'd be cool as can be. The problem is Bruce Wayne of a mind with his current mission that he would want to be a part of Justice League International? Maybe it does. That fits kind of his Batman Inc. global idea, right? Is Bruce going to finance?
Oh, definitely.
Justice League International?
I think I'd be willing to bet the farm on that one that Bruce is going to be around in JLI because he's showing Booster, and I think this definitely fits in with the whole, Batman Inc. mindset, the whole global, reaction, especially because it's Max Lord. He knows what Max did, and it's like, okay, it's time to throw down. You think you won? It ain't over yet, buddy. Like that great motivational speech he gave to Booster. He's like, you're heroes. You keep fighting. You did pull Max out of the shadows. You saved Wonder Woman. This is what we do. And I was just like, yeah. So I'm definitely thinking we're going to see Bruce on the team.
I love Winnick's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I always have. So I don't know. It's a win-win. I don't know that, I don't know that it's make or break it for me, but that's a pretty cool lineup of characters there. Any way that it goes. I loved his talk with Booster, though, because he knows the full story with Booster. So for him to sit there and, have that moment with him where he's saying, you were heroes, you do what you always do, because Booster was kind of down on himself. The verification and validation from Batman, basically saying you're not this cartoony guy anymore, dude. And even, this is what you've always done even back in the day. It just worked out that way. But now look at who you are and where you're at. I mean, and that's what a lot of that was. There's a lot of subtext there. We don't see all of that. But his comments in a very short spell, Bruce, to get that from Batman for Booster was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I'm so glad that they're not definitively saying that he knows everything about Booster, but I'm glad when that happened in the series, when Bruce recognized, actually went through the pictures and saw that Booster tried to save Barbara and just all the different stuff. I'm glad that that's still around. I love seeing that Bruce is giving the acknowledgement to the Booster, because
Bruce does know. That has been in there. I mean, that Bruce knows that Booster's doing this. That was validated in the Booster series.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But since he's died and come back, they haven't really reaffirmed that Bruce knows that directly in words. But in just like moments like this, you get the communication that he still knows.
You're not saying that would have changed.
I'm just saying that if they had changed, they're not. They haven't since Bruce has come back from the dead. They haven't had that moment between the two of them that Bruce openly acknowledges.
I think this is that, dude. I think this is that moment.
Right, that's what I'm saying. But yes, that's what I'm saying here.
Oh, okay. You were confusing because you're making it sound like you thought that there was some question as far as whether or not Bruce knows, and I'm like, no, dude, this is the verification right here. All right, so I get
that's
what
I'm trying to say, and I'm stumbling over my words.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay, because I totally took it the meeting of these two at the end was because of Bruce's respect for Booster. This isn't like when Time Master's Vanishing Point. I really enjoyed that, especially the repartee between Hal Jordan and Booster, because Hal doesn't know.
Right.
So this is a very different meeting of the minds right here with Bruce, where I liked it because this is clearly somebody who knows and respects what Booster's been up to.
Yeah, and even he didn't crack a joke, but he kind of had a not scary Batman moment with him. Where it was like, "You got a plan, right? Oh yeah, how's this?" Bam, and pulls it up. It wasn't just there was a personal connection between the two of them. I thought that was another cool kind of moment.
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't expect it to be affirmed at the end of this that we are getting a monthly series.
Now, the one thing I thought was cool in the combat sequence against OMAC Prime was the heroes, like Beetle and Captain Atom, where they're recognizing, okay, they're absorbing energy. Atom's like, hey, that's okay, because you didn't absorb power, you just absorbed energy, and he sucks it out of him. Then Beetle's like, come on, take my power. Bam, okay, I got you now, because Beetle was recognized. I liked seeing these heroes improvise against, what could be a really nasty villain to go up against. Fine, take my powers. I know how to combat it. You can't control the Scarab power, I can. I thought that was just some cool moments in this fighting sequence.
Well, I love that because basically he infected him.
Yeah.
By the OMAC Prime replicating Blue Beetle's power, he gave Blue Beetle, and this shows that Jaime now is, I don't know if veteran's the right word, but he's certainly seasoned. He knows the Scarab backwards and forwards. This is not the same kid that starred in his solo series. This is a kid who has grown through experience, and he understands his powers. I love that he pulled that on him, saying, all right, now I'm in you.
And he also took command on the battlefield, which I thought was cool, because when Atom and Power Girl first comes in, he's like, no, fall back. We don't, and I love seeing him react that way and actually have the assertiveness to tell two seasoned heroes, back up. We can't have you near this guy.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I liked and I want to talk about this real quick and we can wrap up with this. Booster versus Max powerless. Where Booster's suit was off and we got to see them throw down. And it was great to see Booster in that heroic moment because I've really enjoyed the evolution of Booster, seeing this character grow over time. To me, it's been a lot of parallels, I think, can be made to what I like about Guy Gardner now. is what I'm really enjoying about Booster. And it's been the fact that it wasn't bam, Booster's changed. We got to journey along with that change. He's like that friend of yours that you have high hopes for. And to actually see him achieve that, I think is something inspiring, for all of us. And I love this character now, Booster Gold. I want to see more of him. I can't wait to see him in Flashpoint. I can't wait to see him in JLI after this is all over. I just think he's just going to be a character that just continues to be interesting. I was glad he was on Smallville because maybe this will draw some people to his book that maybe we didn't before. And I'd like to see this character just getting a little bit more notoriety among comic fandom as being a character that's fun and interesting to read because he's unique.
Yeah, he needs to get a little bit more recognition from the fans. I think he's definitely one of those titles that we've talked about him multiple times, and here I love seeing him go powerless against him and Max kind of had that little smug look on his face until Booster knocked it off. That was just absolutely beautiful because it's, again, this isn't the same goofy Booster that you knew before, Max. This is someone who's been training. This is a guy who's been through the ringers now, and he's out for vengeance for his friend. You murdered his best friend. And this is payback time, and I love seeing just Booster throwing down with him.
Yeah, just a great couple of issues and a great event. I'm hoping that post Flashpoint, they find a way to do another weekly delivery. Or a couple series bi-weekly or something like that, and because I think this is just, I don't want all my books to be delivered this way, but I like having a weekly or bi-weekly or two going where I'm getting something every week that feels like it's building to something. That it's going to be a finite story, and when it's done, you're going to go, wow. And I can't wait to see. I'm hoping that this is something that they've got a plan for again, because they've done a great job of keeping these very unique experiences with very few missteps along the way. There's not everyone's been like a 52, which 52 was like mind blowing. But I got to tell you, this Brightest Day and Generation Lost, I think are up there with what I liked about 52.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's this. I'm going to say is number 2 spot for me now. These two are the number 2. 52 is my top, still my top. This one follows.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, because this was a great story, and it was a really just fun experience. And when everything is said and done, I feel like I got something out of it. The only thing I take away from Trinity was once Trinity was done, I got a great story, but once it was done, it didn't continue on in the DCU. It didn't, it was like it just occurred and that was it. It was done.
Well,
whereas this one feels like it's going to continue on.
Jim, it birthed Earth 1, which then that hardcover concept, it was a prelude to that kind of thing. It made that world. So, I mean, that's what Trinity, I love how Trinity ended and that it led into those hardcovers. And I'm not disputing what you're saying. It was a nice contained story that birthed the world that made those hardcovers possible. It was kind of a neat little way to... and I think with Corona being back and everything like that, it kind of acknowledges all that. I liked that event a lot. I'm actually with you on your placement. I think what gives 52 an edge was they stopped, the concept that the DC Universe stopped for a year and we don't know what happened. And 52 was showing us that year. I think, it was a very ambitious project that I think for the most part delivered on its promise of really kind of giving us a look at what the world was like for a year. And that's something, it's hard to replicate that.
Yeah, the first one's always usually has a strong, place in anybody's hearts. You just that first experiment that goes well, and you're like, yeah, this is cool.
I've liked the consistent weekly delivery since then, though. Every one of the weeklies there's been something that has drawn me to each of them and kept me going, just because it's a different kind of storytelling that you can't do in a traditional monthly. And it was kind of a neat little way to do serialized storytelling. So I want to see more. That'll be cool. Jim, I do want to give a quick shout out on the website. There's a link to the new Hero Tomorrow.
Oh,
I don't know if you saw that yet.
Yes,
Hero Tomorrow issue 2. So if you haven't had a chance to check that out, more adventures of Apama. So it is free.
Woohoo!
That's a great thing for listeners out there. A while back when we did a Ted Sikora came on, and we did a chat with him about the movie Hero Tomorrow and the first issue of this comic. So if you haven't had a chance, definitely go to the website, do a direct link to it. You can click on that and go see issue 2 online, but you can also see issue 1 if you never read it. So it's great, it's free, and check it out. We're going to do something in the future. We're going to hopefully get Ted back on, because I've been chatting with him, and I'd like to have him talk about the webcomic and what it's like to design that from a film to go into a web. Because I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because the comic came from a film, which is kind of an unusual way to go about it when you're doing a superhero comic. Usually it's the superhero comic that leads into the movie. So I'd like to talk about that, because I find it incredibly interesting. Especially the character of Apama is fascinating.
Yes.
Hey guys, it's Bobby C., also known as Starwolf Oakley on the forums. I'm just calling because I found out that apparently the next item from the DC animated movies that go direct to DVD will be Justice League Doom, written by the late Dwayne McDuffie, that will be based on the Tower of Babel storyline that was done by Mark Waid for JLA, which is, of course, Talia sneaks into the Batcave, takes some plans Batman had up on how to take out the rest of the Justice League, and Ra's al Ghul uses those plans on the JLA while, I think, activating a satellite that suddenly makes everyone in the world illiterate. That's a popular story, but some people do have their problems with it, mostly that Batman just doesn't seem to care about the whole thing. I mean, the members of the Justice League are angry about it, but Batman just doesn't seem to be that worried or even guilty about his plans being used against those people that are his, if not his friends, at least his teammates. He almost seems to have a screw you on Batman defense, which was used on one page of the Justice League of America issue 0 by Brad Meltzer. In that issue, Batman seemed to think to himself, they're not mad that I did it, they're mad that it worked. Even though it wasn't him that used it, it was Ra's al Ghul. Some responses to it that I've seen online are people hoping that even though they like Tower of Babel, they hope that they give a better contingency plan against Wonder Woman than stick her with a nanite brainwashing VR chip that causes her to be in a single fight over and over until she dies of a heart attack. Some people don't like the idea that Mark Waid started that Wonder Woman is basically fighting McFighterton. You know, all she does is fight. That was like a character point in Kingdom Come that seemed to bleed into her character consistently for a while. And personally, I hope that if Batman wanted to use tactics against the Justice League that would incapacitate them without hurting them, he would have a better idea for taking out the Martian Manhunter than setting him on fire with nanites that basically stick to his skin. If they want to use the idea that Ra's al Ghul somehow amped up the lethality of the attacks, is that a word, lethality? Then that would make more sense to me. And also the idea of Batman feeling guilty over something. Well, the thing about that is you could say Batman feels guilty over everything. To what degree he can express that usually depends on the writer or how the writer views the character. Okay, once again, keep up the great work, and perhaps I'll call you again sometime. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the phone call, Bobby. You know, it's interesting. I didn't take it that... I don't know if it's guilt's the right word for it. Batman definitely felt a responsibility for it. But I think the issue was he didn't understand why they didn't see that what he was doing was for the greater good. I'm not saying I agree with Batman on this, but what he did was he had files set up for every single member of the Justice League to take them down if they went rogue. If Superman went bad, if this person went bad, if Wonder Woman went bad, Martian Manhunter went bad. I mean, and if you take a look at what happened with characters like, let's take a look at Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan became Parallax. There's a justification for having contingency plans like this. Now, morally, I think if you came into my house and found that I had a file for taking you down, which I have well hidden, but you found that would cause major friction between friends, because that is something that, like, if we ever had that issue where we both had superpowers and we morally felt that, I think we'd have a discussion about that, saying, hey, dude, you know, if something were to happen where I snapped, I think that's something he should have done in partnership with them versus doing it on his own with nobody in the Justice League knowing. And Batman really, because of Batman's nature, you got to remember, too, the Batman at this point in time is not the Batman of today.
Yeah, this was the paranoid Batman.
Sure.
And the funny thing is, I've never actually read this story, but I've heard enough discussion about it that I'm pretty comfortable with the story going into it. So I'm actually going to avoid getting the story before this DVD comes out, because I want to see the DVD first and then get the story and read it later.
Read the story for sure, though.
Oh, definitely.
The story's great. It's actually one of my favorite Justice League stories.
Yeah, this is one of those stories, though, that I got a chance of seeing the movie first, and I'm going to make sure I focus on that. But I've heard enough people throw this out. People have talked about it, and I think people have even told me, "Hey, you got to read it. This is a cool story." But just knowing the basic concept of this, non-comic book fans, I think, have the really good potential to enjoy this, because what the non-comic book fans that I know and that I've ever had any like geek conversations with, they all think the same thing, that this is something Batman would do. That if for them this makes perfect sense that Batman would have this contingency file on everybody, and this would be so. Just to have this general concept would make sense. And I think that's going to definitely, there should be a good strong appeal to the comic book reading, but people who like the superhero genre, because they'll want to see Batman's contingency plan for all these different heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, one of the great things about that story is it can lead to a major moral discussion.
Yeah.
Do you agree with Batman? Do you not? Was he right to do that? Was he not? Should he have told them? Should he have not? And I think there's going to be people that wind up in a variety of different places on that, too. Those stories are always interesting to me. Now, do I think that fits Batman? Of that era, yeah, it does. I thought it was a very good story that portrayed that Batman, the right way. I mean, that is who he was at that point.
And it's funny, without knowing any of the in-depth detail on it, I have no issue going into this with what Batman did. And even your little joke earlier about with me and you and me, I honestly look at it where if I did have superpowers, I wouldn't be insulted by you or any of our other friends having a contingency plan. What if Jim loses it? Because I guarantee you, I would have the same thing with if you had the powers or if any of our friends had powers. I would have that contingency plan in my head, just because, you look at this universe where this has happened. This isn't just like a wild fluke, and contingency plans also go with mind control. What if, because we saw Superman, when he was under control of Max Lord. You got to have a way to take down Superman if his mind's being controlled, or subdue or stop him, prevent him from doing any harm to any innocent civilian. So you do have to kind of think this broad spectrum, and I kind of like the idea, and I'm very curious to see this and want to know where it would go.
Major distinction from this and Superman knowing that Batman has the kryptonite ring that Luthor used to have. That whole storyline and that arc that, he approved of that. He knew Batman had that, and it's because he trusted Batman to only use it if absolutely necessary. I like that kind of moral distinction between the two, where, is it okay to do this in secret? There's, how much can, and here's the other question, too. If you're a Batman and you've got these contingency plans, how much can you tell about them?
Mm-hmm. Well, here's actually... in the couple minutes we've been talking about this, I'm thinking of if I was Batman, the way I would have handled it, I wouldn't have had the contingency plan on myself. I wouldn't be the only person who knew about it. I would have somebody else, and I would actually pick probably a B or C list hero, someone that no one would suspect would have this information, but it would have to be a B or C-er that I trusted. It would be that person, that lower hero, and say, okay, here's the contingency plan. And this would be somebody no one would think would have it. Like, you wouldn't think at all, like, Animal Man would have all the contingency plans.
But what if he goes rogue?
Then
that's the paranoid Batman of that era.
Right. Well,
which was one of the major. And I'm not disputing you. You're actually, I agree with everything you said as far as like if I were to set it up, there'd be all kinds of ways I would set it up, and ultimately it would probably burst the bubble on why I would even need it because too many people would know by the time I was done. Because honestly, my problem would be I'm not as paranoid as Batman, and I do trust people that are close to me, and I would not be comfortable having something like that and not having the person know. Whereas Batman did, and he really thought there was. It enters into a morality: is he justified or is he not? And when you look at Batman at that time, it fit Batman. It really did fit Batman to do that at that time. It's not the guy. That was not the guy who would go around the world setting up Batman Inc.
Right. Completely different person.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I liked about the story, though. It fit him from that era. And you got to remember, this is a lot of the stuff that built out of that storyline led eventually to things like Infinite Crisis. Mm-hmm. You know, where Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman were at that stage, the three of them were unable to come together. And, you know, that's if it wasn't for stories like Tower of Babel beforehand, planting the seeds. I'm not saying that Tower of Babel came out with the intention of leading to Infinite Crisis. But it was stories like that started to build these directions for these characters that led to those events. And they did play out during that time. And Batman needed a change. Now, actually, I want to address something that Bobby C. said that I thought was interesting. He talked about, are all of the ways that Batman set up to take them down going to play out that way on the DVD? Maybe, maybe not. Because you got to remember, they got to compress a lot of that. Because it was a big story, and there's, you know, as with anything, they're going to have, at the most, 90 minutes?
Yeah,
I don't think they're not even that long.
No,
right?
they're usually 60, aren't they?
Yeah, well, they're a little over 60. They're usually between, I think, 75 minutes, somewhere around that ballpark. Whatever. You're still compressing a larger story into that. So I'm assuming we're either going to see a number of those very quickly, or we're going to see some alterations to them where multiple, heroes are taken down at the same time. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they do approach the issue of the morality on this and motivations, because they're going to have to speed that up too, and the after effects. The League, basically, at the end of that, had, major issues with Batman, and they should. And it was a lesson learned by him. I actually like that, though. I don't feel like I'm a Batman nut, but I don't feel that Batman always has to be right.
No.
And he wasn't.
Yeah, he's a human, so he has human flaws. He has his, imperfections. So that's another thing. I'm kind of curious to see how they write him to how he's going to appear to be, whether there will be the remorse or whether there won't be, or if they're going to really play into the paranoid Batman, or if they're going to take more of a current day Batman, doing similar things. I don't know.
I actually want them to portray it where he thinks he was right.
Yeah.
As they were going along. I'm not saying that has to end that way, because there was a resolution to that where he eventually had to come to terms. He did eventually, too. I mean, it took a long time, but he did come to terms with that. And I wouldn't mind seeing that. Let me ask you this, because this actually does pose an interesting question. With your favorite heroes, and you know you're a Superman guy.
Yeah.
I'm a Superman guy too, but Batman is my guy out of the two. Do your favorite heroes, including, and you're a Batman guy as well, do they have to be perfect, or can they make mistakes? Can they do big faux pas like that? Does that take away from that character for you if they really goof up?
No, they can be human. They can make mistakes, and even the inhuman ones can have that humanity to them. It's about, with a hero, it's not about being perfect. It's about when you make the mistake, you recognize it, you learn from it, and you move on. It's the hero never quits. Yes, I messed up here, but I'm going to, work through and resolve the issue. And sometimes you have issues that you can't resolve. Like Jon Stewart, a planet's dead and gone. Boom. There's no way he can bring those people back. Well, he's got to he's got to move forward, learn from it, and just, deal with, the repercussions of what his actions were. So I think if you try to make someone perfect, then you're just setting up for an even larger fall. And I am personally less, trusting of someone who appears to be perfect, because I'm going to look, okay, they look like they're perfect. What are they hiding? What's the skeleton in the closet? What's this unknown that I don't know about them? And it's part of my paranoid nature, that who I am. But there's that level when I look at people, I'm like, if it looks too good to be true, it may be.
There was a resolution to that. It took a long time. The story ends. I mean, there's a definite ending to that story. But as far as the Batman resolution with the members of the Justice League that were involved, that took some time for that to happen. So I am curious, like Bobby, to see how they wrap this story up for DVD purposes. Are they going to go beyond how the actual story ended? I don't know. I'm very curious to see that. I do think it's an interesting choice because I thought it was a great story. Mm-hmm. And so I think
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm looking very forward to it. I'd actually love to see, I'm hoping there's some extras in there where they talk about the genesis of that story, where it led, and, how maybe just some quick tidbits on how it led to the Batman of today. Because I think there is an interesting history there to be explored.
Cool.
With that. Yeah, it was cool.
Hey guys, this is Comics Freak on the forum, and I'm calling regarding your latest show where you reviewed Superman Action Comics 900 and had a pretty heated discussion about Superman renouncing his American citizenship. Great episode. Really nice to see the complex discussions that can arise from reading comic books. And I have to say I come down on the side of, I think it's a good thing that he did this. And it's not the first time that characters in comic books have renounced the government and made the distinction between the government and the ideals of the country. Captain America's done it. The Justice League of America did it back in the 80s when they became Justice League International, and for a while just Justice League. So I actually think this is a good thing. And again, your point about people who read Superman ongoing will not see this as coming out of the blue. And it makes sense from a story-wise and a character development place. The only other thing I would add is I do think it's important to think about the real contextual American history around this issue. And the point about truth, justice, and the American way going all the way back to the 50s television show, Superman television show, is right on. I mean, at that point in time, there was the big scare of communism. McCarthyism was at its height. Under God got added to the Pledge of Allegiance, I believe in 1954. I could be wrong about that date, but I think one of you is a teacher and you can double-check that fact. But the point is that it was very reactionary why Superman got tied to America. And I do like thinking of him more as a hero for the world. So on that note, thanks for the great discussion, and I look forward to the next podcast. Thanks, guys. Bye.
I did look it up, and it was 1954 that was added to the pledge. So thanks very much for the commentary and the kind words. I really appreciate that. It's helpful for us to know when segments like that, because I know when Jim and I recorded it, it was a lot of fun for us to record, and I'm always interested to hear where Jim varies and differs from me. But I don't know how that translates all the time to listeners. So when we get this kind of feedback, it's really appreciated to know that, hey, this is something you connected with. And whether anybody agrees or disagrees with us, you can still have hopefully some form of connection or some form of thoughts from it. So we really appreciate phone calls like this where you let us know. Now, on this segment with Superman, I put a poll up on the website, and it was cool. We got a comment on the poll where one of the listeners pointed out that this was something that happened with Superman and Supergirl in the 60s as well. And I love when you were talking about how just the changing eras in our own history would be something that was reflected in the media. Like if you look at Superman all the way back to the Filmation cartoons, straight on through to the serials, to George Reeves, to the Donner films and shows like Lois and Clark, and actually there were Filmation cartoons that were published along the way, and then the Deanie Timverse Superman animated series, straight on through to like shows like Smallville and stuff. The character has had slight tweaks over the time, even Super Friends. Superman is not the same exact character on all those. I think his core values are, and we know he's identifiable as Superman because of that, but I do think in all of the media, including comics, he's changed over time to reflect that particular era. And that's something that I really enjoy about the longevity of these characters, is their ability to do that. This story with Superman, I don't know where they're going to go with it. I don't know if they're going to explore it further. I do think that a lot of listeners who've mentioned since then that this might be a one-off story, and this is something we were chatting about when we did the episode. this could be something that they never intended to go anywhere with, other than that this is a nice contained story to kind of reflect Superman's current world position in the comics. I'm guessing that maybe they thought that there wouldn't be any controversy to this, that, hey, Superman's just saying that he's a world hero, and, it doesn't mean that he's slapping America in the face. He just doesn't want to throw America into difficult positions. I don't know. I'm curious to see where they go with this, if they do anything with it. To me, what I think needs to happen right now for Superman fans in general is just great Superman storytelling, where we get to see where this character goes from here. Grounded is still going on. And when I say, the reason why I'm saying it that way, that story has a beginning, middle, and ending that I'm sure was planned by Straczynski when he started it. So that has to reach a conclusion. I don't know if after Grounded, this is going to be reflected afterwards, or how that's going to go, or if it's going to be reflected in Action Comics. I'm going to be curious to see between those two books, Action Comics and Superman, is Action Comics going to reflect that Grounded's still going on right now, or is Action Comics going to be like kind of the Grounded after Grounded's over? I don't know where timeline that's all going to take place, and I don't know that I need it to take place concurrently with each other. I just, as a reader, like to eventually know when they take place in relation to each other. I do believe with Grounded, it is possible that, say Superman went here in his journeys, but then he jumped off and went and did this doomsday thing, then came back, and I could see that being an ongoing thing where at some point in time in Grounded, doomsday happened, or it happened afterwards. I don't know. This storyline, and the reason why that's even relevant to what we're talking about here, this short story that happened in Action Comics 900, I don't know when it happened. Did it happen after Grounded? Did it happen concurrently with Grounded? Or was some point in time are we going to get a point of reference for this? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with this. I think they almost have to address it because of the controversy. You'd be kind of crazy not to capitalize on that. I think the good thing about all this, taking out whether you agree with Superman or you don't, whether you agree with the American government and their stance on this or you don't, or, you're somewhere in the middle. I think the good thing about this is any time there's a media buzz about a comic book where it's actually directly referencing a single issue of the comic book, it's going to draw, even if it's just a handful of people, to pick up comics that didn't before, to pick up a comic, even if they just pick up Action 900 and go, okay, I'd kind of like to read that, see what the buzz is all about. And, or it could be people that were former readers that are like, oh, maybe I'll check that out. I used to like comics. Maybe I'll check that out. That's good for all of us. It's good for the creators. The question came up on our forums, it's hopefully this won't overshadow, or unfortunately this has overshadowed the Paul Cornell story. As a reader, I didn't take it that it overshadowed it. And what I mean is, I really enjoyed Paul Cornell's Lex Luthor story. I really enjoyed the wrap-up in Action Comics 900. So I think that was a great story. What I'm excited for the Paul Cornell story is maybe a few people who haven't been reading comics might get to see the tidbits of that because they picked it up for the Superman short story that was in there about, his citizenship thing. And they might read that and go, oh, I'm a Lex Luthor fan too, and that story seems interesting. Maybe I'll look at the trades, or maybe I'll just see where the story goes. A lot of times as fans, we get fixated that the issues have to have a jumping on point. I agree and I disagree with that. The reason why is I think television shows and comics and all that, when I was a kid, I jumped onto comics a lot of times right smack in the middle of big arcs because you couldn't go back and get the previous issues. I think nowadays, because we can, we assume that everyone has to be at the beginning point. There are friends of mine who've jumped on television shows that have done it like midway through a season and just kind of caught on to what was going on through the opening previews of it. So I do think that stories like Paul Cornell's story, people, from this buzz might, get into reading a little bit more Action Comics or reading some Superman from it. Maybe maybe if they don't pick up the singles from it, they might pick up a trade or two just to say, hey, you know what, I enjoyed that issue, maybe I'll pick up a trade or two. It's not necessarily going to be always brand new readers. It might be former comic fans or something, but, I think every little bit helps buzz-wise. So that's one of the underlying good things that I think come out of this, whatever you feel, is that hopefully it might generate a few new readers coming to comics because we need them right now. Comics, I'm tired of books being canceled that are great, and I'm hoping something like this will bring just a few new readers to maybe try a book or two and maybe keep following them. And, there's all kinds of ways for them to do that. So I don't know. Thank you for the kind words on the segment. I know I got a little tangent there about my hopes for comics, but anytime there's a controversial topic that gets media attention, that's something we really didn't talk a whole lot about, and I'm hoping that is a side effect of this whole thing, is that we'll see some new readers, because I think it was a good story. I really enjoyed it. And anything that's this thought-provoking that allows people to have their own individual opinion, and where you can't really dispute it. Because I don't feel like, I have my own set point. I feel strongly that I believe what Superman did was the right thing. I don't believe that it, in any way, shape, or form, the government was wrong for their stance on it. I thought, the whole thing played out very well and very realistic to me. But I also don't feel like people who disagree with that are wrong. And that, to me, is also a sign of a really good story where people can have a variety of different opinions, and it doesn't take anything away from that experience because we're all right. And I think that is very rare that you come across stories where you're allowed to have those open opinions and they work. You can't sit there and go, well, in the story, it clearly says this, so you're wrong. There's a lot of arguments that I've heard, anti-Superman taking the stands where I'm like, there's nothing really in the story to contradict them. That's just a personal feeling about his choice. And I like that. That, to me, is realistic, because nowadays we live in a society where we do get to hear a lot of each other's thoughts on a variety of issues. And, morally and ethically, we're all going to have different backgrounds and different viewpoints. And that's why I like podcasting about stories like that. So thank you very much for the comments again. I do want to remind everyone that our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. So please feel free to, anytime, it doesn't have to be about Superman, it can be about anything in comics that you just want to shout out. We love having you part of the show, and I think this is it's really terrific to get just a variety of viewpoints.
Holy caffeine!
I want to thank, for this bonus episode, DCBService.com for supporting us and sponsoring the show. DCBService.com is a service that I've used before they were a sponsor of Raging Bullets, and I love their amazing discounts, but also the pristine condition I receive my books. They're always bagged and boarded. They come in this wonderful wrapping. The boxes, like, you could really throw the box against a brick wall, and I think convinced the books would still be fine and not dented, because they've got this foam stuff that they put around the books. And the box, when you open them up, I'm like, I don't know, you could probably shoot a bullet at it and everything would be fine. It's the box of steel. So I really want to thank DCBService.com for the care that they put in for the pre-orders. And I get my books weekly, and they're always just, like I said, I don't know how they find the time to get them out so quickly, looking so good. So I want to thank DCBService.com for taking care of my comics and supporting the show. Over at InStockTrades.com, I want to do a quick kind of off-the-cuff shout-out to the Little Endless storybooks. I picked both of these up last week. I actually ordered them from InStockTrades.com, and I already got them. And this was something from the C2E2 convention that I ended up grabbing because they were... Jill Thompson was talking about them, and I'm a fan of the Sandman universe, but I never read these. And they just did a reprinting of the Little Endless storybook and the new one, Delirium's Party. I haven't read Delirium's Party yet, but I did read the Little Endless storybook. And it was this cool little story about the Sandman Dream's sister, Delirium. And she gets lost because of her flighty nature, and her dog Barnabas is trying to find her. And along the way, Barnabas goes on this reckless journey throughout the dreaming. And throughout actually I shouldn't say just the dreaming, every world of every member of the Endless trying to find Delirium. And there's just some great moments with members of her family, like Death and Dream and Despair. And each page is filled with the personality of those characters, and just so well drawn. And it's just a fun story, but yet there's a lot of depth and character to it. And there's a charm, and it was just something that I really, really enjoyed. I don't want to spoil too much to it because, the whole thing is Barnabas trying to find Delirium. And as you can guess, is Barnabas going to find Delirium? Of course, but it's how Barnabas finds Delirium that is the interesting part, and that's what I really don't want to spoil. So it's something, if you've been leery to pick this up, try it. It's really good. Delirium's Party is the one I'm going to read next, and Delirium's Party is about her throwing a party for one of the members of the Endless, and it's Despair, actually. So what would it be like for Delirium to throw a birthday party for Despair? And as you can guess, that's probably going to lead to some great fun. But like I said, the artwork is just top-notch, and it's a gorgeous piece and something that can be shared with adults and with the younger crowd as well. So there's something for everybody in this book, so I'm a big fan of it. And that's InStockTrades.com has them in stock now. So go to InStockTrades.com and check out those books. Remember, InStockTrades.com, orders of $50 or more gives you free shipping, so it's just a great service. And over at SummitCityComicCon.com, if you check that out, there's an amazing guest list for this convention that's coming in June. So definitely check out the SummitCityComicCon.com and check out and see if you're going to be in the area in Indiana and have an opportunity to stop by to that convention. SummitCityComicCon.com. And that's put on by show sponsors, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. And there's handy-dandy links to their websites right on RagingBullets.com. They're also in the show notes for every episode, so you don't need to write that down. Just click on them and go support our sponsors. I also want to shout out the Hero Initiative, that's heroinitiative.org, and the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund, that's cbldf.org. And we have a charity section on ragingbullets.com and of links where you can click on those from there, and they're also, again, in our show notes and that. I'm a big fan of these comic book charities, and if there's something out there that you see, if you ever go to our website, ragingbullets.com, and you see that there's something that's missing that you'd like to see me put links to on the website, shoot me an email at ragingbullets@gmail.com. I try to put as many links on of things that I'm aware of, but I always rely on listeners to point out, hey, I've been here and this is something that'd be really great if you had a link to on the site to let people know about it. So please, I consider our site like kind of a networking zone as well. So please feel free to shoot me an email. Our next few episodes, we have a lot of content already recorded. Mark Vickers joined us, and we did a segment on Red Robin number 22, which was part of that crossover. We focused heavily on Tim's journey, our love for Tim Drake as a character, and we talk about really just our own backgrounds with him. Mark was our contest winner for the Sensei Super Snuggie Caption Contest, and we recorded a 2-hour segment with him talking about Tim Drake and what we love about the character, and also the religious implications of that issue, which is really interesting, and we got on a lot of I don't want to say tangents because it really was relevant to the issue that we were talking about, but the issue got very deep, and that will be airing over the next week or so. We're also going to have a segment coming up on Smallville and Flashpoint, so that's going to be coming. I don't know if I'm going to release that before, depends on when we record it. I'm either going to release that before or after the Red Robin segment, so I will let you know on the show website, so please keep an eye out on that. We also are going to be recording with Peter Rios from Comic Geek Speak on Green Arrow the Longbow Hunters. So if you haven't had a chance to read that book, it's available on the DC Comics app, your local comic book retailers. It's out of print right now otherwise. So it's Green Arrow, Longbow Hunters. There are opportunities to read that book now. The trade, I'm sure, is easy to find on the internet and eBay. Local comic book shops are still going to have it. You can pick up the 3-issue Prestige format series. It's gorgeous. It's Mike Grell. And it is available, like I said, on the app. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to grab that book if you haven't had a chance to read it and to join us for that segment. So I just wanted to let people know ahead of time that that's going to be coming over the next couple of weeks. It's something that's been a long time in planning, and it's a good chance. We haven't had a chance in a while to really talk about a classic story from DC, so we're going to be chatting with Peter about Longbow Hunters and why that series is just so cool. And aside from that, we have lots of plans in May to talk about current comic material and all kinds of crazy things that are going on in the DC universe. But like I said, the priority, obviously, we want to talk about Flashpoint, so that's going to be coming next. So we will see you next week.
Bye!
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Faded for love and loss and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman. Eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan. And what you do to me. Are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call